Okay, welcome and welcome back to Unapologetically Black Unicorns. And today I have a very special guest. As usual, I have a special guest, but this time it's my dad, and you all have heard from my dad in the past. And I happen to be in Florida with my dad again. And so, heck, when I'm with my dad, what do? We make a podcast. But let me tell you something. My dad, this past July, celebrated his 90th birthday. So we're talking today not just about his birthday, we're not talking about that, but I think it's important to note that my father also has written articles and books about the importance of democracy. And one article that I recall, especially now when we're going into the final stretch of the elections, is an article that he wrote for the Flagler County Black Democratic Caucus back in 2023 about the importance of voting. And I told him I wanted to talk to him a little bit about that. So we've had that conversation, which you'll hear a little bit about. And I also wanted to read the article. So let's listen into the conversation. Okay, so I'm here with you, Dad, and you've been on my podcast before. But now we're getting around to the wire as far as the election is concerned. And I was really thinking about this article that you had written maybe about a year or so ago about the importance of voting and why it matters. Because, and I'll read this article a bit later, but because a candidate lost by a mere 16 votes. So I'm going to ask you, why is it important to vote?
Well, in length of my life to date, I don't think there's been a time where voting is more critical than it is now. We've got threats from outside and from within, and we are on the brink of selecting a leader. And who that leader is and what that leader's values are immense importance to us all.
And so does every vote count?
Indeed, every vote counts. For example, if you were not to vote for anyone, then you're giving the vote to someone you don't like.
And I think too about historically what it means for Black people to vote. And so what does that mean for you, especially as someone who's older from a different generation?
Well, it's exceedingly important. And when we think about our history as Afro-Americans, it became apparent that at any time when we were denied the right to vote, we were not denied the right to have any control over our lives. And so now that we can vote, we must vote. I had a conversation with a young man, professional, Black, and he said he was not going to vote. And I asked, why not? He said, what difference does it make? All it gives us is a little more roaming space on the traditional plantation. And I asked him if that plantation extended to the bottom of the ocean, that it extended to, for example, the bottom of the sky as a satellite astronaut. Does it extend to the White House where we had a Black president? And so if you answered in the affirmative in those instances, you would not be comfortable not voting.
Well, you voted. You cast your ballot. Yay, and early voting in Florida, just saying. And when I get back home to California, I'll be casting my ballot in early voting as well. So I'm with you, encouraging people to vote. And, I'm now going to turn and read the article that you wrote. So I'll read that. And then I hope people listen to your words of wisdom. We're not telling you who to vote for. We're just saying what? Vote.
Indeed.
All right. So you heard the wisdom of my father. He did some wisdom dropping. And I'll read the article now. So this article was written in October 2023, and the title is Say What? You Did Not Vote? Or basically it is Say What? You or Someone You Know Didn't Vote by Howard A. Myrick, PhD. By the way, that's my dad. Say what? Was my reaction when I heard that in Flagler County, Florida, an African-American candidate for elected office lost by 1 vote. Another Black candidate lost by a mere 16 votes. And this occurred after the publication of the disturbing article, quote, Black voters lagging behind others in Florida, end quote, which was on flaglerlive.com. I had a similar say what reaction when a young African American male said to me, why vote? It does not matter. All it does is give us a little more roaming space on the same plantation. My response, how big is that plantation? Does it extend to the depths of the ocean, outer space, Congress, the White House? African Americans have been all of those spaces and places, and votes by various people and at various times opened those spaces and places. Further, because the young man's age placed him in the youth voter category, the words that came to mind and stated were those spoken by Beyoncé at the 2020 BET Awards ceremony, vote like your life depends on it because it does. Also, by voting, you're proving to our ancestors that their struggles were not in vain. Voters of all ages should know and should explain to non-voters that the price paid at the gas pump, the cost of medicines at the pharmacy, the utility bill, and every product and service under the umbrella of governmental regulatory agencies are all affected by voters, i.e., by politicians and regulators placed there by voters. So by not voting results in somebody else making important decisions about your life and welfare. It is encouraging to note that a sizable number of young hip-hop artists are encouraging others to get out to vote. Cardi B, for example, after voting said, quote, I voted. It was easy. The hardest part was getting out of the effing car. So vote. You'll feel like you just did something, end quote. And remember Jay-Z's hit record, Show Me What You Got? Featured on his special show, Let's Make It Happen, was all about encouraging voting. It is noteworthy also that so many African American women have vigorously engaged in politics and getting out the vote. But that shouldn't be surprising, given the fact that Black women generally have been and are the backbone of the electorate. Note the following facts. In 2016, of eligible adult voters, the ratio of Black women voters was 63.7% to Black male voters at 54.2%. White non-Hispanic women voters at 68% to 63.7% of men non-Hispanic voters. And remember our godfather of soul, James Brown hit It's a Man's World? He ended it with the reprise, A World Without Women Ain't Nothing, a fitting rejoinder using Brother James Brown's paraphrase to the non-voting brothers, just get on up and vote. Frequently heard is the excuse that it's unreasonable to expect poor folks to avoid feeling powerlessness, and that voting is also too abstract a course of action to meet their needs. Somehow, and by whatever means, the message must be convincingly made that voting is one of the most critical ways to exert power, to make and or change laws and systems that impact all citizens. So the message is, you've got the power, use it. Returning to the subject of attracting young voters, recall the Movement Music Initiative and the stated mission to give raw and uncompromising voice to social justice movements. One of their signature campaigns, Free the Vote for Returning Citizens, that tackled the myth that if you have a felony on your record, you have lost your right to vote. False. Although each state has slightly different laws, you need to check it out. Expectedly, much of what is stated herein might seem like preaching to the choir, but it should be remembered that the choir members have husbands, wives, nieces, nephews, neighbors. Therefore, encourage choir members to participate in Get Out the Vote campaigns. Moreover, they can be very helpful in uncovering reasons for not voting and getting information that might otherwise require the use and expense of professional focus group research. Whether targeting young or old non-voters, the following truism holds. Quote, we must take sides, neutrally help the oppressor, never the victim. Silence encourages the tormentor, never the tormented, especially when human lives are endangered, when human dignity is in jeopardy, whenever men and women are persecuted because of their race, religion, or political views. Eli Wiesel. The words of another astute observer are well worth remembering. Talk is cheap, voting is free. Take it to the voting booth. That was written by my dad, Howard Myrick. You know what? Let me tell you a little bit about my dad because it's here at the end of the article. And, he and I usually just jump into conversation and maybe I haven't said much about him. But so I'm going to read his little bio line here. It says, Howard Myrick, PhD, Professor Emeritus, Temple University, School of Media and Communications, formerly professor at Howard University, U.S. Army Command and General Staff College, and Senior Education Advisor to the Vietnamese Political Warfare College, whose Pentagon assignments included service in the Office of the Assistant Secretary of Defense for Public Affairs. He also served as Director of the Office of Communication Research at the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and as a member of the Pennsylvania Television Commission. And he's also a great dad. All right, that's going to be a wrap for Unapologetically Black Unicorns. Get out there, do your thing, mark your ballots, cast your vote, and we will see you next time on Unapologetically Black Unicorns.